Welcome back, everyone, to the Westlake Hornets Teambuilder Dynasty here at NCAA Football 14. As today we have our annual recruiting special where our scouts go around the country looking at potential and future Westlake Hornets. So without further ado, let's get right into it. We find the number one defensive tackle residing in Tacoma, Washington, 6'4", 270 pounds. His name is MARKOS Shelton. We took a look at him as a sophomore. Didn't fly up last year, and I think number one is a little bit generous. We haven't really seen him take over a game yet, but he is still a very talented player, super athletic, solid in the pass as well as the run game. He has a very nice ceiling, but I do think he is somewhat raw compared to some of the other defensive tackles that we will be looking at today. It is currently a two-team battle for him between Washington and Westlake. Next up, we have an offensive guard by the name of Eli Jackson. He is part of that big Jackson family that has numerous talented kids in college football, including that he is the brother of Texas commit quarterback Kyle Jackson, who's being redshirted this year at quarterback. He's also the cousin of Arizona State quarterback Jack Jackson Jr. and Westlake linebacker Owen Jackson, who's had some nasty hits so far this season. He's been very solid. But looking at Eli, solid pass blocker, solid run blocker, all in all, very well-rounded player. I would say it's definitely less than 50% that the Hornets do get him, but they definitely want him. Now, the number 2 defensive tackle in the country, even though I think this guy is better than MARKOS Shelton, his name is Fred Campbell from St. Paul, Minnesota, has definitely shown interest in becoming a Westlake Hornet. However, there are plenty of other teams in the battle. 6'3", 350 pounds, big physical player, big run stuffer, reminds me sort of Dexter Lawrence, former Clemson Tiger, and I think Campbell definitely has Dexter Lawrence's ceiling. Next up, we have a 3 safety who we looked at last year, a native of Slovenia by the name of MARKOS VEDIC, as we thought he was going to be a 5-star. He's actually only a 3-star, but don't let that fool you. He is extremely talented. I expect Westlake to easily get him. However, BYU and Utah are both going in hard, and I'd be very surprised if MARKOS VEDIC ends up with the Westlake Hornets, and I'd expect him to go to one of their rivals, but the Hornets are definitely making a play on him. They definitely really want him. He could be the replacement once Leon Moore leaves. Now, this kid is just a junior. We took a look at him last year, and he's a very intriguing player. From Burmester High, his name is Stephen Westwood. 6'1", 185 pounds. He's not really gained muscle, which I think he definitely needs to, because with this Westlake offensive line, you're going to take some hits. He's very athletic. He's very mobile. He can play on offense. He can also play on defense, as he plays a little bit of defensive back at times, even though he is mainly a quarterback, and that's where he definitely will be playing in college. Don't know if he has NFL potential, but he definitely has the explosiveness of potentially someone like a Kyler Murray. Next up, we have a linebacker here, the number 1 outside linebacker in the country. I would have expected this to be Lewis Kahn at number 1, but it's actually Lawrence McCoon from South Salt Lake, Utah. He is related to Phoenix Suns superstar Casey McCoon. Shout out to Franchise Gaming for that. As McCoon here, big-bodied, excellent in coverage. He's not phenomenal at getting to the quarterback. I would expect him to play left outside linebacker if he became a Hornet, which is more of the team's coverage linebacker. Next up, we have the number 2 center in the nation. His name is Josh McClelland, currently a 2-team battle between Stanford and Westlake. 6'1", 280, not particularly the biggest guy, but Westlake's current center, Mike Carter, is like 230 pounds, so McClelland is still bigger than him. From Rapid Valley, South Dakota, very talented prospect, one of the best offensive linemen in this year's class, and Westlake definitely wants him, but it's definitely going to be a big challenge. Now, unfortunately, this guy will not be coming to Westlake. He just didn't really show that much interest in the program. Surprisingly, I thought he would love to come to Westlake. That's Devontae Cook, the number 4 defensive tackle in the country. He is likely going to go to BYU. However, Wisconsin is in the battle as well. He is a very talented player. Really like his skill set. And if he does go to BYU, that's definitely not going to be fun for Westlake playing them every single season. Now, this is for brother of Stephen Westwood, who we just looked at a couple of moments ago. Also a junior, they're twins. His name is Braxton Westwood at the tight end spot. These two actually have cousins, Arch and Orlando Westwood, who are both sophomores. We didn't really go into detail with them this year. Probably will look at them next year. But taking a look at Braxton Westwood, very balanced. He's a good receiver, good blocker, very big frame, 6'5", 235 pounds, and he's definitely still growing. Could end up at 6'7", or maybe even 6'8", so he's much taller, much bigger than his brother. Now, at the cornerback position from Juneau, Alaska, currently playing for a high school in Seattle, Washington. His name is Aaron Ward. He has a twin brother, Patrick Ward. Aaron Ward is the 131st prospect in the country, and Patrick Ward is number 130, which I find very funny. But Westlake is much more interested in Aaron. Aaron is very good in coverage. Patrick is the complete opposite, more of a run support guy, more of an old school type of football player. And that's just not really the style of cornerback that the Hornets go for, as Aaron is phenomenal in man coverage, very talented in zone as well. Now, the number 3 outside linebacker in the country, I'm surprised this kid's not a 5-star. I don't know how he's not number 1. That is Lewis Kahn, incredibly athletic, sub 4.35 40-yard dash, can get to the quarterback, can stop for run. There are a bunch of teams who want to get this kid. He would be a great replacement for Agobo Inecho Jr., who is currently a junior, so I guess Khan would be redshirted if he commits to Westlake, which is far from a guarantee. Now, this kid is just a junior, but he is insanely talented, phenomenal arsenal. His name is Khalil Corbin, a wide receiver from Escondido, California. That is the same town that Champ Britton, Westlake legendary quarterback, is from, as Corbin has the height, he has the speed, he has the jump ball radius, he can make crazy catches, and he really just gives you everything you look for in a wide receiver, and I would not be surprised if this kid is the number 1 receiver in the country next season. He's that good, that insanely talented, maybe could use to put on a few pounds, but other than that, he is phenomenal. Now, these last 2 guys have already committed to Westlake via Insta-Commit, and the first one is a safety by the name of Marcus Lee, the number 2-3 safety in the country, so that pretty much assures Westlake that they don't really need Marcos VEDIC, but it's definitely good to get both of them, as they could use some extra safeties. But looking at Marcus Lee, very talented player, as he really only showed interest in Westlake, and I'm not surprised that he did Insta-Commit. Very well could be the replacement for Leon Moore or Sean Briggs, since Westlake already does have James Love. Last but not least, at wide receiver, probably my favorite prospect in this year's class. His name is Ulri Ayaluko, the younger brother of Ayo Ayaluka, who is the most receiving touchdowns in school history. As Ulri, not quite as big, not quite the hands that Ayo Ayaluko has, but Ulri has a better ceiling. He's very fast, 4.3 40-yard dash. So he's the more athletic version of Ayo Ayaluko, the number 5 overall player in the country, committed to Westlake, just like his older brother did, and he's definitely going to replace Ayo well, and I'm very curious to see how Ulri's Westlake career ends up turning out. So that's it for this portion of the video. Now let's take a look at the recruiting board. So there you have it, folks. Now we will be looking at the actual recruiting board, going more in depth with all the players. Quarterback, none. Shocker, shocker. Quarterback is not a need since we have our long-term guy in Peyton Curtis, Mike Hadley, as well as Joshua Jones. They are all underclassmen. Running back, same thing. We don't need one. Alex Ellis is a senior, but we do have his replacement in Dante Savage. And we also have Patrick Daly as well as Jason Gibbs. All 3 of those guys were 5 stars a year ago. Looking at fullback, fullback is sort of a need, but there are none currently on the board. We were looking at Harold Bunk Salami from Atlanta, but he doesn't seem too interested in coming. Wide receiver, there are 3, all of whom have already committed via Insta-Commit. The first one, of course, is Ulri Ayaluko, the younger brother of Westlake legend Ayo Ayaluko, who we did talk about earlier in the recruiting special. Speed kills, baby. He's a little bit raw when it comes to his receiving attributes, but still is very solid. And look at those bonus factors. A+, A+, very good. Curtis Vincent, the number 12 receiver in the country from Jessup, Georgia. I hope I said that right. He's a very talented player, and so is Ikeka Jackson from Port Neches, Texas. These two are going to definitely have roles later in their career. Aluko could start probably, if he's lucky, as a redshirt freshman, if not as a redshirt sophomore. Tight end, only one on the board, Ernest Wood. Looks like he wants to go to UCLA, but Westlake is in the battle. The Hornets do already have their long-term tight end in Ronald Young, who is currently being redshirted. Offensive line, there are currently no tackles. Guard, there is one on the board. That is Eli Jackson, who we mentioned in the recruiting special. Very solid player. Looking at his stats, he's very balanced, good pass blocker as well as good run blocker. So you're going to get the full package with him. And then at center, Josh McClelland from Rapid Valley, South Dakota. Stanford is definitely in the lead right now, but like Eli Jackson, he is very well-rounded too. Westlake definitely wants to get him. And then Ryan Burton, solid depth option. The Hornets are definitely in the battle there. Defensive end, there are currently none. However, defensive end is a position that could be of need soon, with Brock Rivera as the senior and Isaac Solomon as the junior. Defensive tackle is a huge need. Both QJ Cashmere and Ernest McCoy are seniors. Westlake doesn't really have any replacement at defensive tackle. They had Jacob Brown, but he transferred. So here's Fred Campbell, the number 2 defensive tackle in the country from Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota. A bunch of teams want him. Look at those bonus factors. A+, A+. He gives you the total package. Very solid pass rusher. Can stop for run as well. And all around is a very talented player. A bunch of teams, including all 5 of which who are in the Pac-12, all are going after him. So he's definitely going to be playing Pac-12 football. It's just a matter of where. Here's Marcus Shelton from Tacoma, Washington, the number 1 defensive tackle in the country. It's going to be a two-way battle between Westlake and Washington. The Huskies do have the edge there. And then Scott Moss, we didn't really look at him, but he still looks like a talented player. The number 3 defensive tackle in the country. And remember, we were going after the number 4 defensive tackle in Devontae Cook, but he wants to go to likely BYU or Wisconsin, unfortunately. Looking at Moss, it's going to be tough. Notre Dame and Ohio State definitely want to get him. But he's a very talented player, as really all of these guys are all very well-rounded, all very similar. I think that was Marcus Shelton's point. We'll just give that back to him. Shelton, I would say, is definitely the most raw of the group, but I do think he is the most upside. At linebacker, Lawrence McCoon, the number 1 in the country from South Salt Lake, Utah. Two-way battle between us and the Oregon Ducks, as he is very good in coverage, and I definitely expect him to, if he does become a Hornet, he's definitely going to be the left outside linebacker, is usually that player, which is currently Alex Coker. He's more likely to drop into coverage, whereas the right outside linebacker, which is currently Agobo Inecho, is more likely to be rushing the quarterback or trying to stop the run. And then look at Lewis Kahn here. He's an insane athlete. He would be that right outside linebacker, that edge rusher, as I don't know how he's not number 1. He's better than Lawrence McCoon, even though McCoon is very good. Lewis Kahn has so much potential, and he has a really good chance to be a superstar in college, as well as the NFL. LSU, Texas, Texas A&M, Westlake, Colorado, Kansas State, Louisiana Tech, and USC have all offered him scholarships, so he's a pretty hot commodity. And then Justin McGee, very talented player, the number 2 outside linebacker in the country. Outside linebacker isn't a gigantic need for Westlake. They have Agobo Inecho. They have Scott Wheaton, who's a talented young player, Cole Spencer. So they do have some young guys there, but they're not like insane talents. He has not been scouted yet. I'll make sure to do that soon. Middle linebacker, none. Owen Jackson's good for the next few seasons. The replacement is not on the roster, unfortunately. If only Garrett committed here. At corner, Aaron Ward from Juneau, Alaska. We did talk about him. Two-way battle between us and the USC Trojans. Definitely a player we want. 90-man, 87 zone. Enough said. Looking at safety, there are 2 on the board. MARKOS VEDIC. I think he is the talent of a 5-star. BYU and Utah are definitely going to be tough competition, and it's not looking good for us at the moment. The Slovenian native, as he's 87% locked. Westlake might have to give him a visit sooner rather than later, but their earliest is week 8, so he's definitely going to be a challenge. And then Marcus Lee, instant commit, number 2, 3 safety in the country. Strong safety, only one on the board. Marcus Jones, number 3 in the country, who's also an instant commit. No kickers, no punters. 7 athletes, though. John Paul Patterson. Nebraska is the favorite, but the Hornets do want him. He's the number 11 athlete in the country. Has 94 speed. Speed kills, baby. Probably going to be a defensive back, which you can never have too many. Tim Beck. Westlake is definitely the front runner for him. He looks like a running back, which is definitely not a need, and he only has 84 speed, so I think a 77 is quite generous. How big is he? 5'11". Yeah, he's definitely not an offensive lineman, because I know it doesn't show blocking stats. But Westlake is definitely the favorite. Stanford has offered him a scholarship, so we'll see if they are interested. Rodney Allen, he was just put on the recruiting board. Looks like a great quarterback, which is not a need, but it looks like he could probably play some wide receiver as well. And then these guys aren't currently getting any points, but they're talented. Brandon Flores, he's going to go to Boise State most likely. Brett Melton. Westlake does have a slight lead over South Carolina, as Westlake, South Carolina, FAU, and Western Kentucky have all given him scholarships. Mark Brown, 4-way battle between Baylor, Texas A&M, Westlake, and TCU. Not surprised to see he's from Texas. And then Chris Burton, definitely going to be a Westlake Hornet. No one is really showing interest in him. The Hornets are the only team who has offered him a scholarship. So, that will end the video. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Next episode will be against the USC Trojans, who just lost to Washington. So, that should definitely be a fun one. Make sure to hit the like button if you're not already. And have a great day.